concept at 7:45.
Do I have any comments or motions relative to the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
I just have a question. Well, I understood the plan was to set up a meeting where the third would be interviewed.
We were going to discuss that on the fourth agenda item, the discussion session.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, I had thought the plan was to do all three, but
One wasn't available tonight.
I understood.
Yeah. So,
So the
item, deliberation discussion, just kind of deliberate then. Hear the two, so we don't hold that up, and then we can decide how to proceed and when to schedule it for. But probably the earliest could be Tuesday if we have to put 48 hours notice in tomorrow's. Oh, okay. Let's just approve the agenda. I think, so did you second it?
I've made the motion, Marion
You
seconded.
seconded it, all right, so let's take a vote. I guess we don't have to do a roll call, do we?
No,
Wow, we don't.
it's actually both though, Jeff. You have to, I'll just say.
All right, so everyone in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Do you want to do it at the table? That
Yeah,
way-
sure.
Is that all right with you?
And the doctor told me I have to keep dark glasses on. I was going to wear my pirate patch, but I didn't think that would have been. So anyway, thank you and the consultant to ensure that we brought administrator select committee experience with the town administrator, town hall, and the group of 8, excluding 1 member, decided to present the 3 candidates that were invited to the meeting last week. To me about the meeting, which kind of means aghast, by the way in which the deliberations were initiated. It was extremely disheartening to see that the town administrator, Mr. Walden, was supposed to uphold the committee's choices and not interfere with the process. Instead, there was a clear indication that preference and bias were present in the way in which we were light due to the actions that were taken in this meeting. In addition, many of the town administrator select committee members do not feel that the interviews and deliberations that follow. I am speaking to this situation not only as chair of the committee, but as a citizen of the town, as I feel that the process we observed last week did not represent the people of Sherborn, even though those that directed it to choose from for this TA position. As the process continues, it is our hope that it is reflective of integrity.
Thank you, Vicki.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment
No.
to begin?
No, you're not ready, man. So I'm going to open the review process now. As noted on the agenda, first item is the review of the interview process. I reviewed it last week, but I'm going to go through it a little bit quicker tonight, but I want to, and Vicki alluded to some of it in her public comment. We did have a search committee that was formed, the select board commissioned in January. We had a position description. The position was advertised for 30 days, and we received 23 applications. And then the days that they felt the search committee should consider interviewing. At that, subsequently given a week or 2 later, all those materials on 8 candidates. Their resumes, there were a total of 4 of the 8 candidates based on that. And after the 4, you forward to the select board to be interviewed. And that's what was done. They picked 3 candidates to be interviewed. So the motion was made that we should maybe consider interviewing them in person. It might make the decision easier. So that's why we're here tonight. The interim town administrator will have the first interview starting at 7 p.m. and background checks on the candidates. Not really like a full reference check, but just on that background check. And maybe it'd be good if you sit at the table.
Certainly. So right here?
Yeah. Materials, just the new information that you got. Their CV was.
MRI. First of all, I'm Buzz Stabchinsky, a municipal consultant, to do a background check, a reference check. The select board with the candidates is to review that. We have a phone call with on the resume. If there's questions about, then either share that with the board, with the select. Talk about that in their opening remarks with the various committees. the next gentleman who will not be, many years of experience, both the moment, 3 years in that position. He's a certified, citations, no violations, no issues with regards to his ethics. Checked several professional references, one in Los Alamos, and then we talked to a reference here, brings analytical skills and good working as a contractor for the federal government. Jeremy, who will be here in a few minutes, Jeremy Natick, as a DPW director, involved with the MMA on a number of boards, committees, and Region 1. I interviewed 3 references, a former, to have mentored him when he was in Framingham, and that felt that he, in their experience with him, working with him as colleague, HR, labor relations, those sorts of things. And again, a registered, a neighbor lives in Natick, worked there for a number of years in a variety of, interviewed a number of people there, and he felt he was an asset because he didn't bring some of the drama, some of the time during the budget process. And then I spoke to 2 work colleagues that praised his style, respectful to them and others, individual in his capacity. But 5:30.
It's just that I have to work. Anything negative? I mean,
Wouldn't have made it through our process. I mean, it would be embarrassing if we found out. Say, okay, thank you very much, we'll move on to another candidate. I'm going to bring you somebody that's going to embarrass. They had issues, find out, quote unquote, negatives, or if not, we'll find.
I think what we were looking.
To an individual, that I would say based their skills in terms of.
So I want to make, before we have the candidates here, I can see available tonight, so we'll have to decide in our discussion session how we're going to handle the 3rd candidate. But we do have 2 available tonight, Jeremy Marstedt and Tim O'Leary. Questions of these candidates. And one of the things I've been concerned about is we haven't gotten a lot of input from town department heads and town employees in the process. So what I did this to any of the candidates on their behalf. So it was a way in which if they had a concern about something that they would like to have answered by the candidates. I'm not sure, we only have a half hour with each one, so I warned that weren't consolidated, they were just verbatim from town department heads. So I appreciate the select boards as we go along, so that's my plan there.
The agenda until 7, I don't think we really should
Should we wait?
probably start
That's
until
fine.
then. Maybe kind of remind them that they don't try to keep
Yes.
it brief. So maybe if you have
That's-
preference, it would know them a little bit more
Right,
in person.
right. And I think it will be refreshing having the with representing 7 of the 13. But I wouldn't have to put a 15-minute sort of buffer in there if it runs over.
I had an opportunity to question these candidates already, so I'm going to committee to make sure their questions get answered, but otherwise I'm going to defer, be relatively quiet.
Do you have anything you want to add?
Well, I mean, what,
So, I mean, if you want to wait, you can.
Like if I had a battery change in them.
No, yeah.
It's a matter of law.
And it says we can take items out of order.
If you think,
I would advocate we just go ahead. I mean, I don't really want to keep you on. Hello.
Nice to meet you in person.
I wanted to mention to you, just told the audience, as I questions verbatim from them, I have select board questions and have a question asked that they felt. I don't know if it's pretty much the same audience you.
But I think, just to remind you, it is only half an hour.
And excited to be back before you. Your candidates are all very capable. I know I'm very confident that I can do the work. Try to give something, a little bit about me. I want to talk a little bit, take some time to talk a little bit about me. I've been a resident of Medfield, your neighbor, for 18 years. My wife and I chose Medfield because of the school system. I'm an advocate for public schools and for smaller class sizes. Then, there's some challenges that, people move to Medfield and Sherborn because of the schools, and then they stay for the character and the community that your town has. So that's, a very, important part of your community. I understand that. I have 2 kids that learn very different ways. My daughter's an aspiring equestrian class, and she needs one-on-one learning. And we've provided that for family and private, we've been able to do that. My son spent a fair amount of time with him as a soccer coach in the community, and watching him develop as a player and a person. Climbed all the 4,000-foot mountains in Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, Maine, canoed the rivers, St. John's River between sailing is my current passion. Became New Hampshire, got my sort of my interest in municipal and sailboat. June, we've done placed second, which was great, but we also had a great time. Jim not sailing this weekend because he's doing the Panamask Challenge. I love the energy that he brings, and in Cape Cod on the weekends, those properties do a fair. I like to do home improvement, some trips this past year after some hiatus, and we're trying to talk him out of a ferry. My wife calls me a municipal geek. Christy, I've wanted to be a town administrator for some time now. Education, the skill set, a great town administrator after serving for Mike's with him as town administrator, really has done very well. Has a action plan that I've just updated, and passionate residents that are helping Medfield, which is a relatively small community, that things don't get done without as a resident being active and interested and passionate, and kind of leverage all of that volunteerism, and looking for a community that in your community. The last time I was in this room on the way here talking to the guy, it was like quintessential Sherborn, quintessential small town character. It was wonderful. I think today it's a little too hot to have those things inside, but
Great, thank you. So who would like to lead off with the
Why
question?
don't you, do you want to start out
Let
with,
me do one of the
why don't you do one of the management?
department heads. What is your strongest, once again, listening, motivation, or organization?
certainly a tough choice. I mean, all of those. I think of those, I think I listen. I'm open to new ideas. Where folks are working, interacting with residents, the public. Helping solve things shoulder to shoulder through, so that kind of to support them. Leadership. I can think of some examples from my time in Natick. As a lead director of Public Works, just a few months before I started work there was a fatality. There was a work fatality. A water treatment operator was in a trench in a class. And that they were not important, and it was it was apparent when I started. So this needs to change. It's just not we listening, understanding, trying to find out the needs and what was lacking. What they were in the supervisors. We developed a safety program. Didn't exist before. We developed a whole program together that included a handbook that was simplified that we could give to folks. We had a safety manual, more comprehensive and detailed if somebody wanted to dig into it. We got some grants from the state, $30,000 or so, to do a complete update of all the training for the department. Brought in a consultant, did OSHA 10, OSHA 40, climate, you name it. We updated everybody's training, so they thought, wow, okay. And then during those trainings, we had these trailers get dirty around things or other personal protective equipment. So we all worked together to make that program, and to make it successfully sustainable as well. So it was one thing to develop it. Folks were really appreciative of that. They felt that we cared. One of the other things we did, we raised money to build a memorial. Every year and annually we advocate. So that listening and just observing. So taking the next steps of actually doing something about it, and working together as a team to do it. So.
Marion, do you want to ask the next question?
Your question, and one very specific, tough, on the ground kind of question. You're a DPW director, you've been a town engineer. The DPW director has a plan, wants to do something, it's a process that you don't agree with. as TA?
You know, and asking questions doesn't mean that you're criticizing or, from what I've seen, you have some strong department heads, and they are. So I would find no need to question those them work together as a team and leverage all their strengths. But the projects that are underway right now, pedestrian improvements and sidewalk.
Do you want to ask
Big
the
one?
general one and we'll George?
Okay, it's not a big answer, I think. Economic, environmentally, and, so, what do you see as Boston changes?
It has the unique charm that it has. I think the opportunity is incredible. You need to protect that, and that you face is that more housing in the Commonwealth, whether it be just market rate goals statewide. There's opportunities, I believe, of some of those zoning changes so that there's more flexibility such that you're maintaining your strong school system, you're maintaining your town services, you're not putting there's other strengths that other communities bring to bear, with all the great open space that you have and the recreational opportunities that you offer.
Turnover in a supervisory role, and how happens with turnover when you've taken over a department or?
My current role, I've been the director for 8 years, or folks leaving, so I've been able to, sort of succession planning by way of people that can fill in. And I've had the fortune to aim to the Public Works Department in Natick as it did retire as and I was selected. That quickly melted away. And I remember about 6 months into here, and I had a chance to work with you. But filling his role was a challenge, position. We were hoping to have somebody internal. It was difficult to identify a good candidate, a good fit. Realize that right person, that things were ahead. The internal candidate I mentioned, and I think he's one of the best fleet managers in the Commonwealth. Is mentor him and help him grow in that role. So that failure. So I've had the opportunity to fill that role. I've got experience with not micromanage, but stepping back and letting the way they do the work in their own way.
So this is kind of a related with a department head or an employee chance to address that.
In the situations that come up, pathetic, but find satisfaction in getting things as well. Even for Acacia, where my office is, it's where everybody coming in and out, or they even happen sometimes, or kind of steer it in a direction. Now that the town administrator in Natick has helped me, we're doing in Natick townwide Transportation Advisory Committee. That's an advisory, they have different ideas. I'm stepping in to help. Been doing some drive around, and I have some different takes on folks from Public Works, but also has resident from the Safety Committee. We're getting more of that. What does that do with the who's on?
Okay, great. Municipal officials today, 5 years.
Of what the select limit of Prop 2.5 projects that gets approved, and I think that visiting, and then after accomplishing for water and sewer rates that were sustained, having them fill their capital program and help them issue funds that have dedicated funding, fully vetted plan that are debt exclusion, new elementary school. But the regular, when I started on the Warren Committee, we had police cruisers that were not good. So for many communities, and I see enough employees, communities that have come from that. I think your community line or the pace of and I love that charm of Sherborn. Doesn't mean to just improve your communication. That sounds like it's been a challenge. Communication has been a challenge. The board, so there's definitely a lot of your community.
Top 3?
Top 3. Budget stresses going forward. So if you can get replacement tires or vehicles, is definitely above on the top 3 because the best people you can balanced way.
What has been your experience interacting?
Sure. Has helped something that might not be the best for your community. Strong volunteers, you want strong winning of projects, you know, the creation of to help build your community. Maybe an extension of a siding is a great one.
In working with those boards.
Sure, and Framingham, the conservation project manager and the community economic board, the building office, every testify in front of the planning board to help to manage our issues to make sure infrastructure can accommodate with working together with them to create new bylaws or
I have one last from the department head, and we're right at it. So education are an integral part of the community and providing the service.
Superintendents, school superintendent, Natick, and then regional school system that, you know, you can educate and you know, your population is old. It sounds like you've got an election coming up, and you know, for those elections, you hear ideas from the candidates and how departments can provide. Things that you can do to support your seniors, you can bring to them. That facility is open a couple of years, and hearing and services that are less cost if Medfield has, you know, the in-town or in Medfield, it's not far. Streams, I think statement of values of what you value in your community. There is a value statement for your community. What is important to you?
The timing's perfect.
Yeah, I think we covered.
Great fit for your community. I think I really enjoy working with you all. Energy and a lot of friends. You know, we've chatted a lot about in the last couple of weeks what is true and you know, what to be silly not to hire you, but and you know, whatever I can do to support you.
Just want to give a quick break, or you okay, guys?
You go, and he's for a half hour.
In person, we get to meet you again. I know you've got your time, so we've asked a lot of questions on their behalf. So I have a consolidated, but just verbatim from, is there any sort of opening statement?
The statement is I intend to be brief.
Okay.
Interview process and the HR consult with them. I agree the town is about to get a new housing. I think I'll see if that comes up in the commentary.
It is decent.
Be brilliant, be brief, be gone.
Thanks for coming, nice to meet you in person. Turnover in a supervisory role, like since you've been in Hop, those were in turnover.
Has to reshape the culture, reshape the organization. I have my diversity, equity, and inclusions. I think most of them left. New people, we made initial offers, and we ended up hiring somebody who'd been working in municipal government, although I had experience in local government. So we hired somebody else, whether they'd never been in low percent transit, I guess a 50. Of course, in the military, everybody, the first 20 years of my profession is important, and people to move to the military for the rest of their lives, some didn't like.
Yeah, told us a story approach versus the expert-driven approach. And you described how you had a lot of people with, you told us the story about, you know, you went ideally, optimally at Hopkinton experience, which is pretty recent.
As the first answer for a town to an assessor for a city with a 20% from the assistant treasurer. And there were some.
Oh, so go ahead. I was going to say that assumption was not correct.
We'll have other issues, and he had a long service because I will say though, you have people. Remember the CFO of the Coast Guard coming in was even these two guys you're trying to move on and find something different, people out, and I would say on balance.
Do you have another question?
No, go ahead.
From the department head, as a brief one, what is your strongest playing one?
I'm gonna say, so I'm really committed to mission. I'm really, we're here to start turning the crank on a machine they've been turning for 20 years. Lost their spark for mission. And I really feel strongly, and I think that I have been most effective by creating a focus. I had some crew members who used to complain when we got a call, trained them, bought a vessel, bought gas, do training drills. You know, you're not there with what the mission is.
Go ahead, Judge.
Area, environmental. So I'd like to ask you, what do you see as Sherborn's plans in the coming years, and what opportunities?
I just need to make a few notes, not have its own, to be a new Dunkin' Donuts, and of course we have this things in a community of homes and those families that are living. This area is not the money the MBTA someday is there for people to be. If people can live in a place like Sherborn, and the town will become more, which is safe and secure, because our filtration system for it. And by going with, so that's a 100-year question, really. What do you be able to affordably treat whatever contaminant? Our experience was when Legacy Farms built out, houses were going at, they were highly changed what Hopkinton High School was, and talking to most people in that community, I think there's no question. It's been brilliant. It's been a real refresh, I guess. And this is another wave of immigrants, and you know, it's going to make us all better. Maniacal obsession with systems purposely about how we're planning and preparing for that. What do we want this town to be, given the projected? Sure, go ahead.
Right, and that process, what would you have added and foresight?
I think,
No.
is it, does it include things like moving to a paper?
Focused on.
There are concentric regulation change, consulting process where you look at what the holes in the gap, you know, the council on. We have a significant, so we don't have access to those services. The town wants to go in to meet its goal. Experience in the Coast Guard anti-aircraft systems and they'll tell us what they're not putting money on those priorities.
Totally understand why you couldn't guess what was development is happening everywhere, basically, open space and climate.
Which open a lot of doors for a community through some of these, at every opportunity you have and everywhere is in the open space. And I think the money being spent on education, which is exhaustive, educating new students, and do you want to go high density or Northwest DC, just up by American University for a long time, and that is a risk to the historic nature of your town to want to build a $4 million house to have it make sense. I don't know. So.
Town. What has been your specific experience?
Interesting. So I guess
Board of Health, Planning Board, and Conservation Commission.
Don't add it here. I'll have so. In my role, the civil and claims and worked on a lot of the admin issues. We had. So I was involved in those cases. That was a bit of a learning experience. The council had some. Let's say the second one was in Los Alamos. Actually, my spouse on some of these matters because she was the marketing major. I have done a couple of where I got a couple friends and we bought a failed and participated in that, and then sold the condos. And I have several lots in both committee on some analytical questions. The past 7 years, we've gotten more leads from most towns. We were the whole community group, including people in the police department, are bad, and that was. So I have some knowledge of that, and it's also an interesting thing. And then I did jobs in every phase of the planning, programming, budgeting. You're a budget person. Planners are planners. I did every thing. So I enjoyed that.
We know that schools and education are an integral part of the care represented and provided with the services they need.
About the equity part of that, before I talk about service, the board makes decisions. On my own initiative, I developed proposals for sewer discounts for seniors who met the state circuit breaker income. The select board has now approved annual discounts for some of our neediest seniors 3 years in a row to provide discounts for these needy seniors. Then when we got into this problem with our PFAS water supply, I proposed the same thing for water. And we have just during the early days of COVID, when we were under the CARES Act, I proposed and developed and personally operated a proposal to provide grants to people who had income disruption as a result of COVID, checks after we had developed, deployed, received applications, vetted the applications, and provided before Christmas. And we mailed them out the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. I think if the select board is interested in equity measures, to try to everybody else. And what we found is when other people see, and it's of course scalable, if we gave $10,000 grants, it would have been unaffordable. But you can help people in a material way and modestly and stay true to your community values, and it can be affordable, and pull that out of the air. You need that analysis. I'm working right now on an analysis on a residential exemption in the property tax. We've never done that, and those are the people who use the residential exemption. But that can give a lower tax available. You can do it at any degree where it provides a modest discount and has, in that case, the decision of the select board. But you need somebody to give you room. I think the chance to physically gather is probably, I know you have an innovative transportation program, but they will decide they want to explore doing more for the seniors. 10 great ideas than to think up one really easy things you can do. And you've been really great about collaborating with other communities. There's a scale factor too. So I think there are a lot of opportunities. It really grab the low-hanging fruit and find those opportunities.
Great on initially.
I answered an essay question. That'll be cheating. So I'll try. This will be a recall test too. You can do make sure all the classified pubs are there. You have to review the person. It gets a new captain every 2 years. And reviewed my notes from that. Thought about the 2 times over a small city. It's its own. Again, thinking about what has to be done, and then making jail. And the state had taken receivership. Do that kind of risk analysis of what comes first and what's most important. Because I have a method I would follow in the absence of guidance. And that's what I wrote in that paper, valuable and important, and have insights. So that's about what I would do. I think not. I actually watched a little bit of the other interviews. I think you have some excellent leadership with integrity. And we used to say in the Coast Guard, I'd rather be capships. And this is a very attractive opportunity for me to move from it's about a beautiful, from where I am to this job. And
Appreciate seeing you again in person.
thank you. Thanks, everybody. I do better with a live audience.
So that concludes the interviews. Then we have the deliberation and that.
I do agree with that. I think it's only fair. I guess while it's fresh on our mind, I don't know if we want to discuss anything that was said tonight or do you think it's better to just wait?
So I happen to like the third candidate that's not here. To Sherborn. That's a little different from the other two. Opportunity to show you what that person could do to this town. Saying, what we like and what we don't like, because unrehearsed set of answers from the
5 or 6.
He's got backup for another.
Few arrows.
So let's correct.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that was as of a couple of days.
And I can't do Tuesday. I have
So it sounds like Wednesday is the day.
Wednesday is okay. But just one is going to be working for all 5 of us. And I understand that Eric couldn't be here tonight, and he wasn't at the last one. Now he can watch the tapes of all those things. So I'd like to have the next date based on Eric's schedule, insights.
Yeah, I didn't announce it. They had to be. We know the candidate's schedule, so it sounds like
So let's
Wednesday's the
shoot for
target date.
Wednesday.
Yes.
Wednesday the 10th, okay. We also,
But I do want to make one general comment. Going to have validates, I think, the work of the search committee. I was honored to be a member of the search committee. They have a series of candidates.
Be quiet and
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.